This one's your father. This one here.
It would be hard to find anyone who likes Joffrey Baratheon. There are plenty of villains who are charismatic, beloved, or at least sympathetic. Joffrey is not one of them. But have you ever questioned, why is he such a monster?
Tell me, which do you favor? Your fingers or your tongue?
Is it his mother? If so, why are her other children completely different? Joffrey had everything a child could need. The most powerful family in the realm. Safety and comfort. He was never abused. Or was he? But at the same time, he was deprived of some very important things. And if he had lived a little longer, his family would have faced much deadlier consequences. Even Ned Stark's execution was not simply an impulse. It was the predictable result of everything Joffrey had been taught. So what do you do to make your child a sadistic narcissist? Joffrey does not seem like a monster from the start. At the beginning, he is actually quite nice to Sansa.
Sun's finally shining. Come walk with me.
Of course, he is mostly playing the role of a chivalrous knight, but no one forces him to do it. If this behavior had been encouraged, it might eventually have become natural to him. At the same time, he is genuinely worried when Robert is dying. So he wasn't always pure evil. What made him that way? The first scene that gives us a part of an answer happens in the very beginning of the show. Joffrey is speaking with Cersei after the direwolf incident by the river. This may look like Cersei is comforting him, but the conversation is much more toxic than it seems.
It's ugly.
A king should have scars. You fought off a direwolf. You're a warrior, like your father.
Joffrey is showing vulnerability. The scar will always remind him of his shame in front of the Stark girls. But see how Cersei reacts. She doesn't comfort him. She rewrites the event. By bringing up Robert, she hits Joffrey's biggest insecurity. The fear that he will never be as strong or masculine as his father.
Not like him. I didn't fight off anything. It bit me, and all I did was scream. And the two Stark girls saw it, both of them.
Who would have thought? Joffrey is being reasonable. He knows he failed.
You let that little girl disarm you.
And he even admits it. But what does Cersei tell him? Does she explain what he did wrong and what he should have done instead?
That's not true. You killed the beast. You only spared the girl because of the love your father bears her father.
I didn't.
That is pure gaslighting. She looks him in the eye and tells him his own memory is wrong. Notice how she reframes his bad behavior as a grand political act of mercy. She is handing him a false ego boost to cover up his embarrassment. When Joffrey tries to object, that hesitation is his last attempt to anchor himself to reality. He's confused. I know what happened. So why is my mother telling me something completely different? This was an opportunity to teach Joffrey something healthy, but Cersei nipped it in the bud. And then Cersei teaches him something much more destructive, not rewriting your own memory, but rewriting the whole reality.
When Aerys Targaryen sat on the Iron Throne, your father was a rebel and a traitor. Someday, you'll sit on the throne and the truth will be what you make it.
This is how you rule like a tyrant. For a tyrant, truth is not something you discover. It is something you enforce. If you've read 1984, you'll recognize the same principle. Reality belongs to whoever holds power. All dictators would agree with that.
Do I have to marry her?
Yes. She's very beautiful and young.
His reaction is just childish. Of course, he doesn't want to be around Sansa after he was ashamed in front of her. Is he ever taught that marriage is built on trust and mutual respect? That showing weakness to your wife isn't shameful? Of course not.
And if you don't like her, you only need to see her on formal occasions and when the time comes to make little princes and princesses.
That is a complete dehumanization of women. Sansa is reduced to a tool for producing heirs. And then he is told that whatever Joffrey chooses to do with other women, there will be no consequences.
And if you'd rather lie with noble virgins, so be it.
What makes it even worse is that this lesson comes not from an abusive father, but from another woman, his mother. She talks about other women as if they were disposable objects.
You are my darling boy, and the world will be exactly as you want it to be.
Imagine hearing this when you're 13. She tells him that the whole universe exists only to please him.
Do something nice with the Stark girl.
I don't want to.
No, but you will. The occasional kindness will spare you all sorts of trouble down the road.
Of course, he tests his authority. He was just told the world belongs to him. So why should he be nice to anyone? Cersei's answer is revealing. Kindness isn't something you do because you genuinely care about someone. It's just another political tool, nothing more.
A good king knows when to save his strength and when to destroy his enemies.
At first, this sounds like reasonable political advice.
So you agree? The Starks are enemies.
Everyone who isn't us is an enemy.
But Joffrey only hears one word: enemies. After everything that happened at the river, hatred becomes the easiest way to protect his ego. Instead of correcting that, Cersei encourages it. This is one lesson Cersei borrows from Tywin, but only half of it. Tywin understood that while you should never truly trust anyone, you still must build political coalitions to survive. Cersei takes Tywin's cynicism, strips away the tactical discipline, and leaves pure, unchecked paranoia. But Cersei overlooked one thing. When she taught Joffrey all that, she assumed there would always be an exception: herself. She was wrong. In the next scene, we see how her lessons were turned against her. Cersei believed that because she gave him absolute permission to dominate everyone else, he would remain her darling boy forever. Remember this moment?
Do something nice for the Stark girl.
I don't want to.
No, but you will.
Now watch what happens 2 seasons later.
You need to ask yourself what
I
it
don't
is.
need to do anything.
Later in the show, Joffrey openly disrespects and provokes her.
I had a disgusting lie about Uncle Jamie. And you?
No one believes this foul gossip.
Someone believes it. Father had other children.
Joffrey discovers that this subject unsettles Cersei, so he keeps pressing it.
I'm asking if he fucked other women when he grew tired of you. How many bastards does he have running?
Remember what Cersei taught him in Season 1. Women are disposable. A king does whatever he wants. She just never imagined these lessons would apply to her too. But that is exactly what Joffrey does. He uses Robert's affairs to humiliate her. Cersei doesn't slap Joffrey as a mother trying to discipline her son. She reacts purely as a wounded woman, and see her face right after that. It's the moment she understands that she can no longer control the monster she created, and she is genuinely afraid. Cersei thought she was raising an all-powerful king, but in reality, she raised the most unbearable teenager in the whole realm. Before we move on to the next scene, which is even more devastating for Joffrey, let me ask you something. What do you think was the biggest thing missing from his upbringing? Was it Robert's absence, Cersei's toxic parenting, or something else? Because it looks like Joffrey had everything a child could possibly need. But he didn't. He was actually missing one thing that every future ruler, and in fact, every child, desperately needs. And that missing element was agency and responsibility. Whatever he did, it was not him who had to deal with the consequences. With that accident at the river, he was wrong, but he didn't have to apologize to anyone or go search for Arya, who was missing because of him. When he executed Ned Stark, he didn't have to fight in the war his own actions started. He did not risk his life in it. He did not go to battle. And it has been that way for all his life. By the way, executing Ned was not just an impulse. From Joffrey's perspective, it solved a real problem. Ned had publicly challenged his legitimacy and called him a false king.
Your son has no claim to the throne.
Liar!
The problem was that since Joffrey never dealt with the consequences, he could not see even one step ahead. So when Joffrey orders to execute Ned, he thinks that he shows real strength to the people and eliminates the threat to his claim.
But they've the soft hearts of women. So long as I'm your king, treason shall never go unpunished.
While in reality, his claim did not become any stronger. All he had done was unleash a full-scale war. The irony is that Joffrey actually wanted more responsibility, but every time he reached for it, he was pushed away. This scene shows us exactly that. We may think that once Tywin arrives, Joffrey will finally have a good mentor, but that's not what happened. The first thing Tywin did was move council meetings closer to his chambers. When Joffrey said it was inconvenient for him, that's what Tywin said.
We could arrange to have you carried.
The point is not about the meetings themselves. It's about one thing. I decide how things work now, and I'm not asking anyone.
Tell me about the Targaryen girl and her dragons. Don't you think we ought to do something about it?
This is interesting because no matter how we hate Joffrey, in this very moment, he is asking a totally reasonable question. Yet because Tywin views Joffrey as nothing more than an annoying, incompetent nuisance, he completely shuts him down.
Curiosities on the far side of the world are no threat to us.
But how do we know these dragons are just curiosities and not the beasts that brought the whole world to heel?
Joffrey sees a growing threat and wants to act early. But for Tywin, it's just a distant curiosity because he's focused on immediate threats. The Starks, the war and court politics. Look at how Tywin dismisses him.
Because we have been told as much by the many experts who serve the realm by counseling the king on matters about which he knows nothing.
But I haven't been counseled.
This line is toxic. He is the cool, rational statesman, and Joffrey is a hysterical boy chasing ghost stories. And he mentions some experts that are supposed to be counseling the king. But the king hasn't been counseled. The reality again doesn't match what is said. And Joffrey tries to anchor himself to reality again, like that conversation with Cersei in the beginning of the video.
You are being counseled at this very moment.
If being counseled is being told to sit down and shut up, then yes, Joffrey is definitely being counseled. Tywin criticizes Joffrey for lacking the knowledge and temperament of a king, but actively denies him the access and education required to build those traits.
I should be consulted about such things.
From now on, I will see to it that you are appropriately consulted on important matters. Whenever necessary.
That whenever necessary says everything. And who decides what is necessary? Tywin, of course. So nothing actually changes. And see what he does next. He turns his back on Joffrey, takes a couple of steps, then turns around and adds almost mockingly,
Your Grace.
It's an explicit reminder. You only have the title, but I have the power. Look at Joffrey's face. He is feeling helpless, and he struggles, but he cannot do anything. And that is a pattern in Joffrey's upbringing. Whenever Joffrey tries to anchor himself to reality, the adults around him shatter it. Cersei told him his cowardice was heroism. Tywin told him his humiliation was counsel. But that scene was at least eye to eye. There is another scene when Joffrey is humiliated in front of the worst audience possible. That small council confrontation after the Red Wedding is where all destructive dynamics collide. If you like breakdowns like this, please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
When Tyrion taunts Joffrey, he instantly panics because his authority feels threatened. He looks around the table for backup, and what does Tywin do? Nothing. Tywin doesn't intervene. Whether intentionally or not, he leaves Joffrey alone in a situation he has no idea how to handle.
I could have your tongue out for saying that.
That is weak. Everybody understands that he cannot actually do it to his uncle, and Tyrion is not scared a bit. But he has to say something. Cersei tries to come to his rescue.
Let him make his threats. He's a bitter little man.
But Cersei only makes things worse. She thinks she is protecting her son. In reality, she is patronizing him in front of the room. She is like a mother telling her toddler to ignore a bully on the playground. She is basically telling the room that Joffrey is unable to handle the argument himself. Again, someone else steps in to deal with the consequences for him.
Lord Tyrion should apologize immediately. Unacceptable, disrespectful, and in very bad taste.
Pycelle jumping in makes it even worse. To Joffrey, Pycelle's intervention communicates that he needs his grand counselors to demand respect for him, because he can't command it himself. So this is what Joffrey sees. Tyrion is mocking him, Cersei is coddling him, Pycelle is defending him like a frail old nanny. Tywin and Varys are just silently observing this performance. This is the moment Joffrey feels cornered. He can't think his way out of Tyrion's trap, so he just freaks out.
I am the king! I will punish you.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king. I'll make sure you understand that when I've won your war for you.
Tywin delivers one of the most famous lines in the show, and we applaud him because we all hate Joffrey. But see what Tywin is actually doing. Tywin isn't giving Joffrey a leadership lesson. He puts the entire burden of the war on Joffrey while taking all the credit for winning it. And it seems reasonable. Joffrey started the war by executing Ned Stark. But did Tywin ever explain why executing Ned was a catastrophic strategic blunder? No. Tywin treats Joffrey like an ungrateful child whose mess the adults had to clean up. But he never actually explains how the mess was made, or how to prevent the next one. It leaves Joffrey with intense shame and zero understanding.
My father won the real war. He killed Prince Rhaegar. He took the crown while you hid on a costly rock.
Joffrey feels humiliated, and he tries to humiliate back. In Joffrey's mind, this should force Tywin to flinch or defend himself. But Tywin doesn't address the insult. He doesn't even address Joffrey as the king or an adult opponent.
The king is tired. See him to his chambers.
Come along.
I'm not tired.
He redefines Joffrey's rage as the crankiness of a sleepy toddler. He strips Joffrey of his dignity in front of the worst possible audience. Tyrion, Varys, Pycelle all watch the king get quietly marched out of the room like a child being sent to timeout. The danger of this situation is that, just like in the previous scene, Tywin leaves Joffrey humiliated, helpless, and angry. And because Joffrey cannot do anything to Tywin, he leaves that room determined to take it out on someone who can't fight back. You may ask, if Tywin and Cersei are such bad parents, why are other children not like that? Tommen, Myrcella, even Jaime? They are maybe not perfect, but they are far from sadistic tyrants. And was there even a chance for Joffrey to be raised a normal person? Well, with Tommen and Myrcella, that's easy. They simply were not treated and coached like Joffrey. Cersei prepared Joffrey to become king, so she poured all her own ambitions into him. The other two children were in the background. Myrcella was a girl, and Tommen was too small. As for Jaime, he had something Joffrey never had. He was raised as a squire.
Which night was it?
Barristan Selmy.
He earned respect instead of inheriting it. We'll come back to why that's important in a moment. So if Jaime benefited from that system, could it have saved Joffrey too? The best solution for Joffrey is actually quite obvious. We don't even have to invent anything. The solution existed centuries ago. Around ages 7 to 10, a boy would leave his home to become a page at another lord's castle, eventually advancing to become a squire around age 14. The system of fostering or wardship was common in feudal society. In fact, keeping a highborn son at home under his mother's thumb until adulthood was actually seen as a failure of parenting. Besides teaching and training young nobles, it also served political purposes. Sending your son to live with another lord was the ultimate sign of trust. It forged tight diplomatic bonds between great houses. Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon were fostered together by Jon Arryn at the Eyrie. That's what created the unbreakable bond between House Stark, House Baratheon, and House Arryn that eventually brought down the Targaryen dynasty. In a normal feudal world, Robert would have sent Joffrey to Riverrun, to Highgarden, or most likely to Winterfell at around age 8. In King's Landing, Joffrey had 0 real peers, only servants who were terrified of him. At Winterfell, he would have been tossed into a yard with Robb Stark, Jon Snow, and Theon Greyjoy. If Joffrey threw a tantrum or tried to cheat during spar sessions, Robb or Jon would put him on his back. Theon was already a ward. Watching how Ned treated Theon, with firm fairness instead of humiliation, would have shown Joffrey that authority doesn't have to rely on cruelty. But there was one huge obstacle. Cersei would never allow that willingly. Cersei viewed her children as extensions of herself. She would have viewed sending Joffrey away as Tywin and Robert stealing her baby. In other words, saving Joffrey first required separating him from the very person who believed she was protecting him. Now tell me in the comments what you think. Did Joffrey have a chance? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.